Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Discriminating Gamer. Say, what did the Kaiser roll say to the French baguette? Gluten Tag. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 World War I games. We'll get back to the review in just a moment. I want to take a minute to ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk about history, books on history, military history. I even post some of my lectures for my classes on there. Please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. And now, back to the review. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 World War I games. Now, I did a top 10 World War I games list about 3 years ago, I think. And so I decided I wanted to go ahead and do it again because I've actually played in the last few years. I've played a few more World War I games, and I've kind of adjusted my rankings. And I thought it would be fun to go back and revisit this theme and talk about them. So I do have some honorable mentions I want to go through very quickly. First of all, the First World War, which was my number 10 last time, a great Euro game that has kind of a World War I theme, a lot of fun. Ottoman Sunset, which is a um, solitaire game in which it's a States of Siege game. Just played that for the first time fairly recently, and I really enjoyed that one. Age of Dogfights, World War One, which was number 4 last time. It's fallen off the list, but it's a very fun World War One dogfighting game. Paths of Glory. I actually took a lot of flack because I didn't include Paths of Glory on my list last time. It didn't make the list this time either, but I have played it now, and it's a fun game. I totally see the love for it. I do feel like it's a little dated, and it's a little too long and unwieldy, I think, for me to be on the list. But I did enjoy it. I still have it. Fun and interesting game. It is in my honorable mentions. The Great War, which was a commands and colors system war game, very light World War One game. That was a lot of fun. Great War Commander. Great War Commander was my number 5 last time on the list. It's fallen off the list. This is kind of like Combat Commander Europe or Combat Commander Pacific. Has that same system. Very fun game. I actually ended up giving that one away. It didn't get to the table very often, but it's still a great game. And then one I played again here fairly recently, McGowan and Lombardi's The Great War. This was a card game. It's kind of a trick-taking card game that was actually a lot of fun. You kind of could link the your different units, and then you were trying to go for the big score every round. Again, very light theme, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the Great War too. But now we're going to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 games for this year. So my first one is, or my number 10, rather, I should say, was a game that was I think it was my number 8. Yeah, it was my number 8 last time. This is Wings for the Baron. This was a Victory Point game, games game, and this is a game. Wings for the Baron is a game where you are German aircraft manufacturers trying to build the best aircraft, military aircraft, and winning contracts from the German government. But you're also trying to kind of play the economy to make sure you've got enough money and resources in order to make the kinds of planes you want to make. It was a tremendously fun game, and I'd never seen anything with that particular theme before. It was a victory points game, which means it had good components, but not necessarily great components. But I really enjoyed the game. I ended up giving it away, and it was one I regretted. I had that in my games I regretted giving away video. But I recently heard that GMT Games is actually going to reprint Wings for the Baron, and I am super excited to see the edition they create with it. I think this is a great game to make a comeback, and I'm really excited that it will be coming back. So that is number 10. That is Wings from the Baron. That was from Victory Point Games. It will be published by GMT. My number 9 is a game that I mentioned its sister game here a second ago in the honorable mentions, Ottoman Sunset, but this is Hapsburg Eclipse. Hapsburg Eclipse is a game, again, a States of Siege game where the various tracks are leading toward Vienna, and you're trying to stave them off. Of course, you're drawing the cards, you're seeing which tracks advance, you're rolling the die, you're trying to fight them back, but you're also trying to maintain kind of the cohesion of the empires. You have various groups that are on the verge of revolting against your rule. But then there's off-map battles that will affect how things are going and your morale and what have you. It's just a tremendous game. It's really a lot of fun. I probably could have easily have put Ottoman Sunset or Habsburg Eclipse, interchanged them. It's just I feel like Hapsburg Eclipse, I think it was the first States of Siege game I played, so it's got a special place in my heart. But I think it's fun, and I love the whole Habsburg monarchy, and the theme there I think really comes through. Well, anyway, that is number 9. That's Hapsburg Eclipse. Now this was in my last list. This was Axis and Allies 1914 existed here, but no, my number 9 is Hapsburg Eclipse, and that is from the new Victory Point Games Tabletop Tycoon. My number 8 is this was Wings for the Baron last time, but this is the Grizzled. Now the Grizzled before was my number 7. So it did fall one spot, but the Grizzled is a great cooperative game about life in the trenches and just surviving the war. It's got the great artwork. I believe the artist was among those that was murdered in the Charlie Hebdo massacre a few years ago. What a great legacy, and what a wonderful, incredible talent that was lost to us. Because the art here is, for me, is half the fun of this game. I love the art, but the game itself is so good. It's a cooperative game that you can't alpha game because it's hidden information, and you can't share what cards you can play. But as soon as you're playing cards, and as soon as you play 3 cards that have the same symbols on them, game over. You're toast. So it's really a way of trying to avoid doing that. But there's options you can take. There's things you can do to mitigate it. It's a fantastic game. So that is, excuse me, that is number 8. That is the Grizzled, and that is from Come On. My number 7. This is a game. Again, this was my 7 was the Grizzled last time, but my new number 7. This is a game that I literally just played about a month ago for the first time, and it is fantastic. It's a solitaire game. And this is Aces of Valor from Legion War Games. This is a great World War I airplane game, aerial warfare game, but it's very abstract. It's incredibly abstract because essentially you create a flight of planes, and they're moving along the orthogonally along kind of a grid. And when they go to a different grid, you roll the die to see if an event happens. Most of the times, when you're over your own lines, events won't happen, but they can, and then it becomes more likely if you're over the trenches and much more likely if you're over your enemy's territory. And so depending on what your mission is, it could be more dangerous and more likely to encounter some of these other enemies. But what's interesting here is when you encounter the enemy, of course, you have to determine initiative. And each plane has kind of an initiative value, and you're going to look at what they've got, their pilot skill, you're going to look at kind of a die roll, and then you're going to place them all in this kind of section. There's like 20 spaces, and where they are. And so a plane can't attack a plane in its same grid or above it, but anything below it, it can. And, well, actually, the next highest one is the one it has to attack. And it's really fun. And after every round of combat, you have to redetermine initiative. So you can kind of imagine the dogfights that are happening in this battle. Really fun, really, really exciting. There's a lot of different missions you can do, and then when you come back from mission, there are these different events, post-mission events that occur that kind of give some spice and sugar to the game. Fantastic game. That is Aces of Valor. That is my number 7, and that is from Legion War Games. Now, last time, my number 6 was Hapsburg Eclipse. When I made the list, the Hapsburg Eclipse I had was, of course, the original Victory Point one. But Hapsburg Eclipse, of course, has now fallen to number 9 just because I played some more of these games. But my number 6 now is Quartermaster General 1914. Now, this is a game that, of course, really kind of looks at the logistics of war. And you're playing cards to kind of ready armies and prepare them for the offense or the defense. You only ever have kind of like one token in any space representing an army. But you're playing these cards, and when you do battle, you have to be able to meet and counter other cards. And it is tough, and Germany's kind of this behemoth toward the beginning of the game, and it's kind of this attrition. Can you wear Germany down? And it's really, really well done. But the way the cards play, and you can play the cards for different things, is just beautiful. This is a fun game. It can be very frustrating at times, but it's an awful lot of fun, and it's a good, as I say, representation of the war from a logistical standpoint here. So that is Quartermaster General 1914, and that is, I believe, from Ares Games. My number 5 was Great War Commander, which has fallen off the list. But this is a game, again, I played not too long ago, and it just blew me away. This is Verdun 1916 Steel Inferno from Fellowship of Simulations. This is a great, great game of just this important, iconic, horrible battle. And you're represented by these blocks. And if they're standing straight up, they're readied. If they're laying down, they're exhausted. But you're playing cards as a CDG. You're playing cards either for action points or for the events. And the events frequently are barrage, and you're kind of barraging the enemy. And you can actually bring in your infantry with the barrage, but you can take friendly fire too if you roll wrong. So it's got a lot of really good. There's a lot of good moments in this game where you're pushing through the lines, you're making headway. But what's really cool about this game is one of the ways you score points, and it's kind of a tug of war point system between the French and the Germans. And one of the ways you score points, one of the most important ways you score points, is every time your opponent calls for reinforcements, you get points. You're drawing their strength away from other fronts. You're getting points. It's like the French. The game begins, and the Germans have the point value is so low, the Germans want to get it higher, thinking, well, I got plenty of time. But the Germans are going to break through. They're just stronger than you. Their cards are more powerful than yours. So the only way you're going to hold the line is by bringing in those reinforcements. But every time you bring those reinforcements, you're handing points to the Germans. So it's kind of, again, kind of a balancing act, and it's done really, really well. So that is Verdun 1916 Steel Inferno. That is my number 5, and that is from Fellowship of Simulations. My number 4, this was again Age of Dogfights, World War I. And this is a game that last year it was my number 3, but this is Fields of Despair. Fields of Despair is a great World War I game. It's a block war game that covers the Western Front, and then it abstracts the Eastern Front. It abstracts the war at sea. But you've got really high numbers. You've got blocks that represent up to like 20. And so you can have just these massive dice battles, and of course you've got charts and stuff where we figured that out, but you're actually looking at factors. You're trying to figure out the factors of the attacks, which is a very fun thing in war games, and to see the front shift and change. And if you're the Germans, you're trying to gain those objectives, and the French are again trying to hold them back. It's really, really fun. It's really well done. It does a good job of showing the slog and just how much, even though the Germans are advancing, just the punishment they're taking and the losses they're taking, even as they're advancing. I have a lot. I've only played this a few times, but every time I've played it, it's just been tremendous fun. So that is Fields of Despair. That is my number 4, and that is from GMT Games. My number 3, now this was a game that actually made quite the jump. It was my number 9 last year, and now it is my number 3. This is Axis and Allies World War I 1914. I can hear the groans. This is I just played I hadn't played the original. It had been years since I'd played the original Axis and Allies 1914. It had been quite a while since I'd played that. And I remembered I enjoyed it, but I thought I liked these other games better. But I just played it again recently with Kim. We played it, and I forgot how much I love Axis and Allies. It's simple, but there is some real strategy there, and I just love it. And I love the way how you use the dice, how you roll the dice, how you assign them to certain units, and then you've got accompanying artillery. It makes you better if you've got aircraft that can spot for you. It makes things better. Your tanks make things better. And then too, when you're in these battles, and it's just one round of combat, so these battles can continue on. Again, it's a slog, but it is incredibly fun. I love Axis and Allies games, and this one is a unique one. It's a long one, but it's very, very fun. I really enjoyed Axis and Allies World War I 1914, and that is printed by Renegade Game Studios. That is my number 3. Now, I'll tell you right now, my number 2 is the same game. It was number 2 when I did this list a few years ago, because this is just an absolutely outstanding game. And technically, it is not a war game per se. This deals with the Treaty of Versailles, because this is Versailles 1919. Versailles 1919 is this brilliant game of negotiation and trying to kind of solve these issues that are going on in the world. But as you are solving these issues, you actually take them and they become your, you're kind of bidding for them, but they become your victory points. But then at certain times, crises can erupt in parts of the world. And if you've got one of these cards that is in one of those parts of the world, it's back in play and other people can steal it from you. And that sounds very simplistic for what it is, because this is an incredibly thematic game. You've got events and figures from the peace conference that were there, and it's just every time I play this, I've had a lot of fun, and I'm talking to you right now. It's been a while since I played it. I want to play it again. I want to get this to the table. It is a 4-player game. I got to find some people to play it with because it is fantastic. You can play it with less than 4, but it shines with 4. That is Versailles, 1919. That is my number 2. That is from GMT Games. Well, my number 1 is another game that was my number 1 last time. So if you saw that first list, you know my number 1 is An Attrition of Souls from Compass Games. An Attrition of Souls is a pretty, it's kind of a map of Europe, and it's a pretty simple game. It's a pretty easy game to learn and to play, but it's one of those games that has a very, very deep strategies. And it's very cool, essentially, because I remember I played this with Zach, and I think the first time we played, I was the Germans and he was the Allies, and I beat him, but just barely. And then we played it again, but I played the Allies and he played the Germans, and I beat him, but just barely. And he was so mad. He was so mad that I kept just pulling those victories out at the end. But this is a great game, and the way the dice, you roll the dice, and the way they work, and you've actually got kind of on the counters, you've got like kind of like the dice hit points on the counters, what it takes to hit them, and it's so good. And there's special units that can come out in the game, and the way the different countries activate, the neutral countries activate in the game, it's just fantastic. And America coming into it. I really, really love this game. This is, I can't tell you how, when I think of World War I game that I want to play, out of all these I've been talking about, this is the top of my list. I love An Attrition of Souls. You know what I like about it too is it's got that kind of European wide epic feel to it, but it doesn't play that long. It's a much shorter game than, say, Axis and Allies 1914. It's a much shorter game, and yet it still has this tremendous strategic depth to it. So that is An Attrition of Souls. That is my number 1 World War I game of all time, and that is from Compass Games. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us today on The Big Show. What do you think? What are some of your favorite World War I games? I'm always very eager to know what people think, what they're excited about. What do you think of my list? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Just keep it civil. It seems like there's always one guy who has something mean to say because I don't like the games that he likes. But please, 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 I do really like to know what games you are. I found a lot of games that I enjoy from comments from people on the channel. So please, please, by all means, let me know what you think. And like I said, leave a comment here on YouTube, Board Game Geek, wherever. Also, too, I'd ask you to check out my other channel, that is Cody Carlson, PhD, where we talk, of course, about military history and books on history. I post some of my lectures on there, so please check that out. Please subscribe to that channel. That means a lot to me when I see that channel go up. And then, of course, I'll probably post this on Board Game Geek. Please give us a thumb there as well. And if you really do like the channel, if you like the kind of stuff we bring to you here, I'd ask you to go ahead and click on the Super Thanks button in the YouTube page here and leave a contribution. That means a lot to us. You know, ladies and gentlemen, speaking of those soldiers in World War I, at first many of them didn't know how to dig a trench. But they soon got to the bottom of it.
Please somebody help me on my feet again, and I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know where I've been. Please somebody help me on the solid ground. It's a long time, and I'll be dying. Once a year I wind up in the band. God knows that I love to fight, but I don't ever win. It's a fine line to damnation, but God let me in.
We are the Discriminating Gamer. And ladies and gentlemen, if you will indulge me, I'd actually like to read to you a passage, a letter rather, from Captain Charles May of the 22nd Manchester Regiment that he wrote to his wife shortly before the Battle of the Somme, the evening before the Battle of the Somme to be precise. I must not allow myself to dwell on the personal. There is no room for it here. Also, it is demoralizing, but I do not want to die. Not that I mind for myself. If it may be that I am to go, I am ready. But the thought that I may never see you or our darling baby again turns my bowels to water. I cannot think of it even with a semblance of equanimity. My one consolation is the happiness that has been ours. Also, my conscience is clear, that I have always tried to make life a joy to you. I know at least that if I go, you will not want. That is something. But it is the thought that we may be cut off from one another which is so terrible, and that our babe may grow up without my knowing her, and without her knowing me. It is difficult to face, and I know your life without me would be a dull blank. Yet you must never let it become wholly so, for to you will be left the greatest charge in all the world, the upbringing of our baby. God bless that child. She is the hope of life to me. My darling, au revoir. It may well be that you will only have to read these lines as ones of passing interest. On the other hand, they may well be my last message to you. If they are, know through all your life that I loved you and baby with all of my heart and soul, and you two sweet things were just all the world to me. I pray God I may do my duty, for I know, whatever that may entail, you would not have it otherwise. Captain May died the next day.